Today's morning chat is sponsored by Bourbon Barrel Podcasting.
Welcome back. It's now time for our morning chat, and today we're learning how to build a strong podcast. Bourbon Barrel Podcasting is a boutique podcast production company, and it's based right here in Lexington. We have founder Jennifer Longworth here today to tell us about her new book, and it's called Build a Strong Podcast. Hi, it's so nice to meet you.
You too. Thank you for having me.
Of course. And Lee and I have one question, really. Where were you 8 years ago when we started our own podcast? We could have used your help.
I wasn't as good as I am now back then.
Okay. Yeah.
I was still learning, so I got into podcasting about 10 years ago, but was still trying to figure it out back then. So.
Yeah. Okay.
So what made you decide to get into it? Because it's such a unique business.
So I worked at a small radio station, and we were talk radio, and the boss comes in and says, Jennifer, get us on iTunes. I'm like, iTunes? What does that look like? How do you get your radio station on? Oh, wait, it looks a lot like a podcast with an RSS feed. And then I just learned it from there. And then when the radio station sold, I was like, well, what do I do with all this podcast knowledge? And that's when I became a freelance podcast editor and have since built the business.
Okay.
So smart.
Yeah, it is so smart because so many people want to do a podcast, but they don't know how to go about it. They don't know what kind of equipment they're going to need.
Right.
And you answer all of those questions for them.
That's my job.
Yes.
That's what I do.
Yeah.
So you cover everything from the equipment they need to the platforms. So if someone reaches out to you, what does the process look like?
So we do a discovery call first to see where they are, and I ask them questions like, why are you doing this? Who is your audience? And if they don't know the answer to those questions, we don't start a podcast.
Yeah. First things first.
I try to dissuade them from starting a podcast.
Right.
But then it's like, okay, depending on where they are in their journey, some people come to me already established. They kind of know what they're doing, but they need help with the editing side because editing gets them bogged down. So let me help with that. If they aren't to that point yet, we go through a basic planning. Here's what to buy. Here's how to set it up. If you're local, I do house calls and help you, plug in the microphone to the right input in your computer or buy the right adapter or whatever. And then after that, we say, if you can hit the big red button, we can take care of the rest of the tech.
Oh, that makes it very
awesome.
simple.
Yep.
Gosh, we really could have used that.
Oh, I know. Because getting it on the right platforms is important too, because there's so many platforms out there to download podcasts. Is there any particular ones you recommend over others? And I know there's an expense involved with that.
Well, there's no expense to be on Apple and Spotify.
Okay, there's not.
No,
okay.
no. Once you submit to those, you're good. And Amazon, most of the distribution channels are
we were
free.
doing it wrong because I was paying Tam.
Yeah.
Well, you might be able to pay you for a media host to create the RSS feed, but you don't actually have to pay Apple and Spotify.
Okay.
But you got to be on Apple and Spotify. And then some countries, Amazon Music is the top performer, actually.
Really?
Wow.
Yes.
Yeah.
All right.
So why did you decide to put all of this information in a book?
Well, some people are like, did you give out too much information in the book? I'm like, this is the questions everybody asks me anyway.
You got tired of answering the same question over and over.
Just buy the book. And you'll see the dedication is to the pod curious, which is kind of a word I think I made up.
Oh.
If you thinking about doing a podcast, I call you pod curious. So if you're pod curious, you can get most of your questions answered here.
Yeah.
And
so,
how can
how can people get it?
If you go to buildastrongpodcast.com, it'll take you to the Amazon page, so it's available in paperback and Kindle.
Oh, okay.
So do you have like an idea of what are some of the most common mistakes people make when they're trying to build a podcast?
It's skipping the why and the who.
Okay.
All right. They say, hey, I'm going to start a podcast and I'm going to name it this and it's going to be great. And I came up with my brand and I have a logo. I'm like, what's your podcast about? Well, I haven't figured that out yet.
Right.
And I've met multiple people who have done that. I did a presentation on Build a Strong Podcast and someone came up to me. He's like, you said it wrong. I did my brand first. I still haven't launched. I'm like, you're who I'm talking about.
And then the who is important too, because if nobody wants to listen to you, it doesn't matter.
And your audience isn't everyone. Shocking. I know. It's sad. But your audience
you have to find
isn't everyone.
a niche.
Yes.
Yeah. is so important. Well, it sounds like this is just a great book for anybody that's pod curious. So we're going to recommend everybody pick this up, and maybe you and I need to relaunch
That would
our
be so
podcast.
fun.
Yeah.
We need your help,
Well,
Jennifer.
we need lots of help, Jennifer.
Yes. We need to read the book first.
That's right.
Yes.
So we'll get with that. And if you want to get a copy of this, we're going to have all of the information for Bourbon Barrel Podcasting up on the screen. And thank you, Jennifer, so much.
Thank you so much.
Yes.
And you can keep that copy.
Oh,